Good evening and good Friday. This is Kiana, and today I want to talk about what I research, what I don't, what is my methodology, what I'm not looking into, and we'll go into that in this video. Before we get into that, I want to say that my current activities as a human rights defender is not, I'm not getting compensated. I've actually lost a lot of money, uh, engaging in this kind of human rights activity. So, for example, I have lost student loans. I've lost Pell Grants. They were either stolen from my account or removed or hidden. So again, I've lost more from engaging in this kind of human rights activity than I have gained. But because I really care about the communities which I am writing about and researching and supporting, I continue to do it. So I want to clarify, which no one's asked me about this, but I think it's important now that the dust has settled a bit and not entirely, of course. And now that I have a clear picture about what's happening, it's now I think it's an important time for me to clarify uh, something that I wrote in my paper on the treatment of trans women in direct provision, and specifically if you scroll down to the bottom where it says, did I receive any funding for that, um, writing that paper, and it says to be announced. The reason why I put to be announced, because I realized that I was in a very difficult situation. If you remember, if anyone has read that paper, you'll see that I raised a question as to who was giving these this group of asylum seekers permission to engage in this kind of policing of certain people in direct provision, and did they have authority to do that? And so my putting to be announced was like a layer of protection to, I guess, give the create, how can I say it? Maybe give the impression that my research was being backed by someone so that I would be protected in a way. Because, again, like I understood that this kind of behavior that I was researching, that it was being perpetuated and given imprimatur by an authority figure. So because I was alone in that situation. Again, when I was writing that paper and I was researching it, no one was advocating on my behalf. If you read it, you'll see that several organizations that I went to didn't actually advocate for me and stand up for me. So my writing to be announced, of course. So we know that when most people uh, submit research papers, they don't get paid unless the paper is behind a paywall. So, of course, it wouldn't have made any sense for me to say, to be announced when the paper hasn't been approved or peer reviewed yet. But again, I put to be announced on there because I wanted to give the impression that I had some backing behind me in case things really got out of hand, and which they did, of course, later on. But I think that for that time being, I think it could have been worse immediately, but it wasn't until the authorities that were perpetuating this practice began to understand that I didn't have support behind me, that I actually did it all on my own. But again, that is the reason why I put it to be announced, is because I wanted to give the perception or the impression that I had some protection behind me, and that would actually keep me safe in the process. So let's get into the kind of research that I do. Now, again, I must reiterate, I'm not getting paid for the reportings that I do and the information that I'm curating and my my human rights defender activities. What I'm doing is that I am just engaging in ethnography, right? What is ethnography? So basically, it's just writing about people, writing, observing, and describing the acts of people. And this is not really done on purpose. For example, when I when I came to Northern Ireland, of course, my idea wasn't, let me go into the uh, accommodation that they have placed me in and let me research what's going on. No, I actually didn't even think about researching anything in this accommodation center. But as you have it, there is always going to be a situation where someone's rights are going to be violated. Often I'm the person whose rights are being violated because I have so many intersections and because I am not the ideal victim and I am not the ideal asylum seeker. So my rights are not going to be protected in a lot of instances. So in those, I think that this is what makes me a unique person to actually write and describe the acts of people, because again, all asylum seekers are not treated equally. So when it comes to my methodology on reporting human rights violations in countries that I lived in, um, so this first started, I think, when I enrolled in the University of Arizona online. And most of my professors at the beginning of the semester would ask a very pertinent question, and that was, if you could be an expert in anything, what would you be an expert in? And I ruminated on that question, and I thought, I really want to research conditions in countries the way that Black Americans are treated abroad. And why did I want to do that? So I had already filed an asylum claim in Canada. So I was in Canada from 2018, I believe, 2017 to 2018. And then I was in Sweden from 2019. And then I came to the Republic of Ireland in 2020 and left the Republic of Ireland in 2023. And now I'm in Northern Ireland in 2024. So, I've been in a lot of countries, and I have a nuanced perspective on how African Americans or Black Americans are treated. So before I get into like my methodology and research, I'll just kind of tell you um, how countries are treating Black Americans. So when I lived in Canada, um, I would have to say that that is the country, I think, where I was treated the best. And I don't know if that's just because, you know, I'm a descendant of Canada. My last name, of course, is Canada. That's my real last name. I didn't change it to Canada. That's my real last name. And when I went to Canada, when I fled to Canada and I lived there for a year, I just love the country. It felt like my home. Like honestly, like it felt like that is where I was meant to be. And some people would just really get a kick out of learning that my last name was Canada, and some people would just say, you're meant to be here. But of course, we know that changed. Uh, but it was a country that I really loved. Like it just has a majestic um, feeling about it. And of course, there's majestic feelings, there's a majestic feeling in a lot of other countries. There's a majestic feeling here to some degree. But when I lived in Canada, like, I felt really, I was in pain when I left that country. Like, it was just, like, one thing I would like to do is, maybe do a 23andMe and to see if, like, my ancestors may have, like, ancestors may have, immigrated from Canada to the United States. I know that, my parents, both of my parents were born in the United States, and their parents were as well. But I wonder if, like, maybe, later, or further down in our ancestral tree, if on my dad's side, if they um, immigrated from Canada. I wonder about that. But, like, again, like, if I had an opportunity to live in Canada, like, I would drop everything and just go live there. Like, I love that country so much. Like, if I can't begin to tell you, like, that felt like my home. It felt like that's where I was supposed to be. And Canada, just I'm getting off of the topic, but I just want to talk about Canada because there was a difference in Canada. For example, um, there is a 6 months cold and 6 months summer, and uh, it is so cold in Canada. Like, and I'm not a cold weather person by any means, but it's so cold there. But the difference is that during the winter time, there's so much to do. There's so many activities. It's a very multicultural uh, country. Toronto is very multicultural. It just has an essence, and I really, really miss it a lot, and really miss the people there. Um, so I think, in terms of all the countries that I lived in, I think that Canada is the one country, just based on my observations and based on, like, my opinions. And again, I wasn't researching in anything in Canada because I wasn't enrolled in university then. I had only taken a non-credited semester course on migration and uprootedness at York University, and it wasn't credited, but it was kind of like a pathway to a degree program if, of course, I was able to stay in Canada. But out of all the countries that I've lived in, I would have to say my honest opinion is that Canada was the country that actually treated me the best, and that I felt like that there was a sense of, uh, a home. Like, when I was living in Canada, they made me feel like I was at home. And I'll give you another example is that, um, when oh my God. So I was living in this accommodation center when I first got to Canada, and oh my God, like, that oh, those people there, are so loving and caring at that accommodation center, and you can really see the spirit and warmth in those people in Canada. And there wasn't, like, any judgment. I have to say, there wasn't judgment. And what I really liked about that accommodation is that when so when I was in this particular accommodation, like we would have uh, days where it would be cultural days, so everybody would, maybe make food about, and have a day where everybody is coming together and talking about the food from their culture. So that happened. And then there was yoga classes at this accommodation. Not only was there yoga classes, not so one, we're having people come together to talk about their food and in their country, and then there is yoga classes for women there in the accommodation, and then there is these different groups. And then there's Christmas days. I remember the Christmas days where uh, so the authorities, or actually the people that are that own the accommodation, would actually, get everyone gifts, but they would actually call everybody by their name to come and get the gift, and you just like walk through a line, and then everybody's like, "Whoa!" Like it was just such a warm place of love and care, and it's a place that I really miss a lot. Like I just really love it a lot in Canada. So that was just like one country, like out of all countries, that I felt like that really just treated me like I was human, and that I was family, and just really treated me with like all the respect in the world. And I miss that country a lot. But back to this research that I am talking about. So that is my motivation for researching these issues that I guess Black Americans are facing, because there is differential treatment in these nations, right? And so my inspiration for researching conditions in different countries has to do with that, and understanding that, and understanding how people are interacting with people in a way that either brings harmony or disharmony. So what does a country conditions researcher, investigate? Well, or what do they do? So they basically compile reports or periodicals or thematic reports on a specific issue or a specific human rights violation, a specific situation. Uh, and so essentially, what I am doing is I'm curating a lot of articles and finding uh, themes in mistreatment that's happening, and I am writing on that. And this is going to hopefully one day go into a larger report and be sent to the United Nations for their review. Okay, so what am I also what else am I researching? So what I do research is like the disparate treatment of Black Americans, and of course it's not limited to Black Americans, but that is kind of like where I specialize, is in the mistreatment or the fair treatment of Black Americans. So what is disparate treatment? Well, it's policies and practices that come together to impact a particular group of people, in this case, Black Americans. So, why Black Americans? Black Americans, because I am a Black American, and because skin color is immutable, it cannot be changed. And so, when a person is mistreated based on their skin color, it's not something that they can change. They can't go, you know, they can't actually change it. I mean, some people can change their skin color, but that's not going to change people's perception of your ethnicity, right? But in my situation, okay, I am dark skinned, I am Black. So if I go to a restaurant and they decide that they don't want to serve me because I'm black, there is not a situation to where I can actually go and change my skin color and come back and be served. So it's not a situation where, like, if you go to a restaurant and they said we need you to have a shirt on, and you come there with a shirt off, well, you can go and you can put a shirt on and they will serve you. So this is the reason why I'm so interested in this particular area, because there is also less global support for Black Americans. There often is much support for other groups, but not a lot of support for Black Americans. And because I'm a Black American, I have to be like grounded in this area of research. And of course, I have lived experience. So I have that experience of being mistreated as a Black American. I have experience as being treated well in certain instances, like I described in Canada, as a Black American. And I'm often in multiracial circles. Um, and I think that this gives me like a nuanced view of how others are behaving toward us, whether that is explicitly or implicitly. So, again, I like to look at if treatment is fair and impartial, if treatment is unfair and biased, if the treatment is discriminatory, if the treatment is oppressive or dismissive, or if there is a pattern and a practice. Why do I allow others to report on non-binary communities? Why am I not taking on that? Why am I not reporting enough on that? Well, shout out to my non-binary, people out there, but I want to say this is that individuals who identify as non-binary, I think that because of the fluidity in their identity, it's difficult to collect statistics and data when a person is non-binary, because again, when you're non-binary, you may identify as male, at one given time, maybe female at another given time, or not a binary gender at a given time. So it depends on what's happening to that person at that given time and how they're identifying. It can be really difficult to pin down statistics and data for this marginalized group of people. So it's one reason why I don't really I let other people actually document and focus on this area. So why Black trans women? Why do I often focus on Black trans women? Is it personal? I think that Black trans women are more disenfranchised and have a higher proximity to violence because of their intersections. So we have trans isolated, which receives a lot of discrimination and prejudice in society, and then you have Blacks who receive a lot of discrimination and prejudice in society. And then if we put these two together, then that is exasperated, right? So now that there is an increase in either violence or mistreatment or discrimination or harm or prejudice. So this is one reason why I actually want to focus on trans women that are Black. Again, a trans woman is more likely to experience discrimination and violence because she is Black, and will often not likely get the support that she deserves. And sometimes there are going to be situations where it may be difficult to support people who are trans, but that is not the case for everyone. And I think that majority of trans people, if not, a large percentage, maybe 98, 99% of trans people are looking for legitimate support and help and looking to belong to a community that accepts them. So it can be very difficult when you're trans, and uh, when you are trans, there is, of course, a lot of stigma, and trans people are ostracized and marginalized. So it's important for trans people to actually get the support that they deserve. So there are some situations where I do have more latitude to advocate for others that are not Black in my research, and that is gun violence. And so why? Why gun violence? Why the rights of children? Why homeless people? These are three areas that I have more latitude to advocate with my research. Why these three areas? Well, because these three areas are really affected by laws and legislation of the state. So with gun violence, there wouldn't be the increase in gun violence or the severity or this epidemic of gun violence in the United States if there was workable and sensible gun control laws, or if there were our political leaders and legislators coming together and amending the Second Amendment. And children, so again, it's the same thing with children. In the United States currently, unfortunately, we haven't acceded to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, and I think that the Convention on the Rights of the Child is an extra layer of protection for children so that it keeps them safe. And oftentimes when children are harmed, whether they're harmed by other children, I don't often speak out on that. And it's not because I don't care, but I don't speak out on that because I want to give authority figures such as administrators and teachers and parents the opportunity to actually advocate for the children and to make the changes and to address the problems themselves. But when it's police officers that are harming children, it is something that I must speak out on because of the sensitivity and the connectedness that I have with being harmed by law enforcement. So it is really within my heart to actually, to speak out or speak on the behalf of children that are being harmed by the state, because it can often be very difficult to get justice if you're going against the state. So I understand that feat and I understand that obstacle. So therefore, in that situation, I will actually speak out on the behalf of children who are being mistreated by the state. And it's the same thing with homeless people, persons that don't have a home. They often don't have the support structures in place to assist them, or they don't have support structures that are going to advocate on their behalf. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of organizations that are speaking out and on the behalf of homeless people. But oftentimes, of course, we know that homeless people, sometimes they don't have a camera phone. So when they're being mistreated and misused, sometimes people are not seeing it, not around to record it, and they're unable to protect their rights. In a lot of instances, they are being thrown in jail or they are being assaulted. And I just think it's very important that we speak out against that situation, and that's something that I'm trying to do now. And again, like I said, if these are situations where it involves like a parent or a teacher or administrator, and the administrator has the authority, then I'm not going to usurp the authority of the administrator. Of course, I can't anyway. I don't have that power. But I wouldn't try to usurp that power that they have to actually address that issue. I want to give them an opportunity to remedy the issue. And there was a situation that I seen recently. I believe it happened in Manchester, where there was a homeless man sleeping, and he was being pulled in his sleeping bag by police, and the police stomped on his chest, and I was just very disgusted by that. I had a similar situation happen to me when I got to Belfast. It was so cold outside, and I was sleeping within like the revolving door area because it was so cold, and I was in a sleeping bag. And the same thing happened to me. A security guard actually picked me and threw me out. This I think was like my first or second day here in Belfast. A security guard actually grabbed me very hard and threw me like I was a rag doll, and it was just a very dehumanizing experience. And of course, in that situation, again, nobody was around to record it, and nobody was around to speak out on my behalf for it. So, as you can see, this is why I am so focused on these specific issues, because, again, at that precise moment, my only thought was getting sleep. It wasn't, okay, let me record and let me document myself sleeping in a lobby. No, I wasn't thinking to do that. I was just thinking, you know what, it's so cold. I'm tired of walking. I don't have any place to sleep. Let me just lie down for just a moment and try and get some sleep here. And hopefully they'll be compassionate enough to just let me sleep in the warm for just a moment. And that didn't happen. Again, the security guard actually, grabbed me so tightly and threw me out. And it was just, again, a very dehumanizing experience. And this is why I speak out against these specific kinds of violations, because, it does hurt people in a way that the aggressors are really not understanding. So that is in essence what I'm researching. That's just not going into full details, just kind of a summary of what I'm researching, why I'm doing the work that I'm doing, why I care about the work that I'm doing. And again, the work that I'm doing is not to demonize or to persecute the dominant society or other people. It's really just to bring balance and fairness into the lives of people like myself, or the lives of people such as homeless people, or the rights of the child, or trans people, or Black Americans, where they may find it very difficult. And it's really just done in good faith. So I am still talking about my Twitter account. There is some suppression, so I don't think that my tweets, like, I'm not getting the followership, the kind of followership that I seek. So I am reporting and tweeting about a lot of human rights issues, and following a lot of human rights organizations and international organizations, and I'm not getting that kind of followership. And it's okay. I'm going to continue to uh, tweet about the things that I care about. So if you want to follow my tweets, you can do so. And if you want to tweet me back, my handle is at Quianna, Quianna underscore Canada, Canada. Again, you can follow me on Medium and look at some of the things that I'm talking about on Medium. At just type in Google, or do a Google search, Quianna Canada American Human Rights Defender, and that should bring up my Medium account. There are two, so you might want to look at the most updated one, because both of them are named Quianna Canada American Human Rights Defender. One account I don't have access to, so the one that I do have access to is going to have the updated articles on there. And if you have any questions, please feel free to just tweet me or to give me a comment, and I will do my best to answer them. Sometimes I don't answer messages from people if I don't feel like it's a legitimate question, and I don't get questions often, but I may have got a question here or there, and when I read those questions, it didn't seem like it was coming from a good place. So if you do have any questions to ask me, feel free, and I will do my best to answer it. Okay, so that's been enough, and I want you to have a good night. Happy Friday. Go out and have some fun, and see you next time. Bye bye.